So, there's a crankshaft on the bench. Micrometer ready to have a look at, let's see if there's any wear. I've got a bit of cleaning up done in the garage. Got stuff degreased, put away. So it's starting to it's starting to go somewhere. But yeah, let's have a look at this. So I have seen this done but never actually done it myself. But the idea is we're going to measure at several points around the circumference of each journal and pin, and compare that to the numbers given in the workshop manual. So that's going to give it. So on one measurement we're going to get a comparison with the specification, and by doing several we get to see whether the pin has worn oval or not. That's referred to as out of round. And it's also possible to measure a taper by moving from the edge to the centre to the other edge of the bearing. So I am using a metric micrometer. I'm sure there's some people who'd think that's sacrilege, but they're easier for me. Well, easier for me to get and easier for me to reason about. I find engineering makes more sense with metric measurements. Anyway, we have specs for both, so that's perfectly fine. These are all under 10th out under, which is 0.254 millimeters. So we have to take that off of the specified value or specified value range in order to get our result. So I'm going to get on with that, starting with number 1. So our spec is 50.81 to 50.83 mil. We're undersize by 254, which gives us 50.556 to 50.576. And these are our readings, so 0.570, 0.562 and 0.565, which is within this range. And I have to look what the out of round allowance is. Which does not appear to be in my manual, so I'll have to look that up. Yeah, I shall get on and measure the rest of this, and then we can have a look what it's like. So, we've measured the out of round on the main bearings and the taper. Now, I've really struggled to find any real reference for what this should be. Best I could manage is it's somewhere between 0.4 and 0.5 thou, which turns into 0.01-ish millimeters. So if that is the case, the mains are just about okay. However, the big end bearings, the big end journals, should be between 41.04 and 41.07 mil, and they're all very consistent, but they're looking like they are 0.02 under spec. So there's possible, I suspect I'm going to have this crankshaft ground, but I can give it to the machinist and ask them to confirm or deny, just in case I'm doing something terribly wrong with my measurements. I don't have a proper or anything particularly accurate to measure the width of the rear bearing journal, but we can have a look. Probably can have an idea if this crankshaft has been machined widthwise here, because it could be, it's possible, or probable even, that this is not the crankshaft that caused the damage to the block. I would guess it's been replaced, but we can have a quick look at that. This rear journal width should be pretty much dead on 33 millimeters. 33.2. The way you actually measure that from, I'm not sure. Those two faces. I suppose it will be, because that'll be what the thrust is running on. So that's quite oversized, if this is to be believed. Which, well, it's going to give us an idea. But as with the other bits, the machinists are going to have the final say. So yeah, I think that's ready to go. And it's going to be on to run hone through the block and measure the bores. So as I went to turn the engine over, I realised I had not taken the oil pump off. So I start off measuring while it's there before we get it cleaned up. I'm going to get it measured, because I'm, with the rockers being worn and possibly the big end bearings or journals being worn, it does make me wonder if I wasn't really getting much in the way of oil pressure. And I can see scoring on the face of this pump, which I don't think is normal. But anyway, let's have a look. So I have a straight edge over the edge of the pump body, and measure under there, and that is, so that's 4th thou, which I think is the limit, and that goes under very easily. 6 doesn't go. 3 and a 2. Three and a 2 fit very loosely. Oh no, 6 does go under there. I don't feel that this is super even. I can definitely get, well, 6 is loose under there. So maybe that's wrong, and I think this is supposed to be 8 maximum. Anyway, I think that's due for replacement. So now that's everything off the block, well, more or less everything, so a couple of little bits and pieces, and crankshaft measured. So what I'm going to do is run a very light hone down the cylinders. I've only got a budget honing tool, so the aim is to take the glaze off, absolutely nothing more. Then measure, see what they like, and then it's going to be ready to have a bit of a clean up, and hopefully tomorrow I'm going to be able to drop it at the machinists for them to give a proper opinion on. But I'm feeling quite confident now that the block is going to be usable. Anyway, let's get on with honing. So this is the tool. I think the idea is slacken this off, so we've got, what's it going in? Let's go as minimal tension. Must be more, yeah, compressing that spring. Yeah, so I'm going to slacken this right off, so the tension's going to be as light as it's possible. Goes in the drill, and we go in and spin and move it up and down. It's doing not very much, so let's turn this up a little bit. before we look in the bore, I just spotted, I can see Made in England in reverse, which presumably came off, it didn't come off the head gasket that was just fitted. So, I wonder how long that's been, or what imprinted that. Anyway, let's try and look in here. So I don't think my speed's quite right. I don't feel like this cross hatching is what we need, and you can also see there is a bit of scoring on the side of the cylinder there, up and down from the piston. So, well done, light. So yeah, keep going. If it needs to be rebored, it needs to be rebored. But yeah, so I think the cross hatching might be acceptable, but you can see on this side there is there's two ridges. There's a very pronounced ridge there, and there's a lower one I can feel, so we kind of go out and then in again. So I think I'm going to measure this cylinder just to kind of get the feel and see what it's like. But as it's going to the machinist, I think it's, well, given I can feel stuff, I think that probably means rebore. But we will get the actual experts to confirm that. Okay, I've just spent a lot of time fiddling around figuring out how to get this set up. So what you have to do, I think what you have to do, is alter the distance of this anvil so you've got a fixed reading. And what I've done is I've ended up setting this at exactly 75mm, and then as we compress this, you see the reading goes up, but this is going to tell us that it's that much shorter. If 0 is 75mm, this is now shorter than 75mm. So this goes in the bore, and we want to find the highest point because that means we're right on the wall. So that's reading there 57 over under. So that's 57 times 0.01. Because it's 0.57mm underneath, or away from 75.00. Fifty-seven. So that's works out as 74.41, which is outside the specification already, and in this direction. It's reading 32. So 75 minus 32. That means that's even larger. So it's feeling like rebore time. So there's a block after an assault with degreaser and pressure washer. So I bought this stuff a couple of times over the years, and it's, you know, you put it on some oil or grease and wipe it around a bit. However, I bought this the other day, just happened to see it in the shop, and it's much better. So you know, one versus the other. I'd try this stuff, which I found at Halfords. Anyway, I'm now going to go and apply copious quantities of WD-40 to keep that block from rusting. So I've just been trying to measure the oil pressure relief valve spring, and having, well, you know, it's bigger than the anvil of the micrometer, and it's got a hole in the middle that's about the same size as the micrometer anvil. Anyway, what I ended up doing is setting the micrometer is set at the min spec, which is 38.86 millimeters, and yeah, it fits good. So I think that will need replacing too. And here we've got the distributed drive gear, 12.650. So 12.650 is fine, fortunately. Not sure where I'll get another one of those. Now, one of the last things I was wanting to do before kind of leaving everything about the engine till I've heard back from the machinist was figure out what cam I've got. Now, it's probably a stock 1360 cam, but I want to identify it because I'm considering putting a Spitfire Mark III one in, so I just want to make sure that I don't actually have that already. There is an identifying number on it, but I can't read it. It's even cleaning up. I'm not getting it. So I was wondering how to do this. Obviously, the actual timing differs, and that's easy to find out specs for, but that's harder to measure when it's not on the car. So yeah, so I've been and looked up. The lift of the cams is actually different between the two, which is easy to measure. This is something I didn't. You know, it's obvious when you think about it, but I didn't really realise. Didn't really occur to me. Obviously, your cam, each cam is a circle with a teardrop shape. So most of it's a circle, and then we have the top bit here, which is actually, you know, shaped to lift and open your valve. And we can easily measure that lift by measuring the circle bit. So we have 1.085 inches. Yeah. And then measuring the peak. Which is 1.301. and subtracting the smaller from the larger number, which gives us 0.216 in this case. So the lift on the Herald cam happens to be the same as the lift on the early Spitfire cams, and those are 0.215 inches. So we're only making this measurement with calipers, but it's going to, we're comparing it with a Spitfire Mark III cam, which is 0.24. So either it's very worn, it's unlikely, or it's not one of these. So I'm not going to do anything at the minute because I'm still waiting to see what the condition of the block is and what the condition of the crankshaft is. So I'm not going to start buying parts yet, but I can be pretty sure this is a stock 1360 cam, so if I choose to replace it, so if I want to go Mark III Spitfire spec, then I will have to get another one. So I've got most of the actual cleaning and degreasing of stuff done, and I need to get on with blasting, wire brushing, painting while the engine is off being evaluated, or the engine block's off being evaluated. So I'm going to start off with these aluminium bits. Now the one that, the ceiling block that came off the car, which is this one, it might be it's very obvious to me that it's bent, and probably because the bolt here has been over tightened. Now the threads all look fine, but it's not very flat. It's to the extent that I'm not sure if it's it's not quite as bad as I first thought, actually. What's that? It's 15 thou. It's still pretty rubbish, and probably not something we can expect to recover from. I've got another one that is flatter. It's actually still got a similar amount of distortion. I think this is not just going to be a case of flattening a face, is it? Because we've got to get that. We've got to get both faces flat. That may mean we need to make the gaskets under this section thicker to make sure that this face is then flush with the bottom of the sump. We've also got to make sure that that face and that face remain at right angles, because then we've got to seal with the sump and the front engine plate, and then it's also needs it's got strip threads, so it would need inserts put in. So I think it's replacement. Yeah, so it looks like both of these sealing blocks are not worth bothering with. So actually pretty good. Compared with the one I took off the Spitfire, which had clearly been heavily distorted, but I did manage to save that one. So I'm going to get a bit of sandpaper and I'm just going to take the back down flat, because we can see there's a bit of muck still there from the gasket, especially on this face. So with a couple of minutes of flatting, you can see everywhere it's shiny except these two bits, and I am going to stop here because if I put it flat I can't get my smallest feeler gauge under there, so I'm confident that with this being, first of all, it's the top, and second of all, we do put sealer on this, so I think the gasket and the sealer are going to take that up. I give the bottom a clean up. So I've given this one a very, very light run over, but it's not actually deformed, it's flat. So that's good. What I'm going to look at next is something quite similar, the fuel pump. Now, why am I saying that the oil pump is similar? Well, because I've managed to acquire a second-hand but apparently unused, or fitted to an engine, bought in the 80s, fitted to an engine and then the engine would never run. However, it's of a later style. So this is the one that came off the Herald. So what I want to do is use this pickup piece, the top, the bottom of the pump, because, well, this is going to sit lower in the oil, whereas pickup here is going to sit higher. So it makes sense to me. We have more oil. But to do that, I'm going to have to deal with the scoring that's on this face. So because we have to measure the clearance between the body and the rotor, and that has to be below a certain thickness. So that's got to be below 4,000. So this also has to be flat to kind of keep the pump functioning as optimally as possible, and it isn't. So what I'm going to do is polish that out. Actually, first what I'm going to do is check it actually does. It should fit on this later pump body. I'm just going to give this a measure as well, since I haven't yet. Okay, so that's very comfortably in spec, which is good. It backs up the story of it not having been used. Oh. Even says, I'm going to be able to focus on this. Can you think? That'll be just about visible. It says 15th 79, so it looks like 15/1/79. Actually, I think my existing one is it's actually newer. It says 88 4WK, so I guess that's the 4th week of 88. Anyway, so I'm going to similar to the rear seal housing. I'm going to polish this up on sandpaper, but unlike the rear seal housing, I am going to go for a much finer finish because this is actually a working surface and not a sealing surface. So I start off on the coarser paper and then go down to wet and dry with some lubricant. So I've got out the damage, and I'm going to move on to some finer sandpaper or emery paper. Yeah, so I think that is done. It's gone a bit faster than I expected, it's gone a bit faster than I imagined because I'm more used to doing this sort of thing to true up wood plane soles, which are obviously steel and take a lot longer to flatten out. Yeah, a bit of wet and dry. This is just some like sewing machine type oil, 3-in-1 or light general purpose, and that's worked quite well. Now I'm going to go and give this a good wash because it's got all these metal particles on it, and obviously I do not want to install those into the new pump. So I've had the blast cabinet out again, and I've been cleaning up some bits and pieces to go on the engine. I did stupidly decide to sandblast the water pump, and now, surprise surprise, it's got grit inside it, so I think that's due for replacement, unfortunately. Also, unfortunately, the compressor's just broken, so I can't go very much further with that, but I can get some paint on things. Yeah, I'm not rapidly running out of things I can actively do until I have some word on the state of the engine block. And I suppose there's plenty still to clean up and assess. So I've been kind of pottering around getting some bits of painting done while I can. Haven't really been able to do much because compressor's broken, though I've got parts from the supplier on the way, so I'll be able to get that back up and running shortly. But I've just kind of realised that there's a thing I've been forgetting about. Now the thing we can't see under here, the rearmost outrigger oh, well, not rearmost outrigger, because that's the one with the boot. Anyway, this outrigger at the rear corner is, well, it wants looking at, and I mean, this I should do it. There's no reason not to do it now, because sill's off. Obviously, I'm going to get the sill. It's going to come back painted, and I just want to be able to put that on and not have to take it off again in probably a quite short period of time. So I'm going to get the car on stands. I'm going to take this wheel off, and we'll see what it looks like under there. However, that's going to have to wait till next time, because I've been bouncing back and forth between doing bits of engine work and bits of body work, and I've decided to kind of rejig the recordings, so we've got one episode that's engine cleanup and measurements and so on, and another which is the final bits of welding before the body goes for paint, or the bulkhead goes for paint, and dealing with the problems we've just looked at in the chassis. So, thanks for watching, thanks for commenting, thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you next time.